Pirates and vandals have been plundering the island of Corsica from before the Middle Ages. They have captured men and women from Corsica for slavery. To help deter this, the Corsican fighters would decapitate their invaders and post their decapitated heads on poles, displaying their victory over invaders of their island. The heads of their enemies had become a symbol of their freedom. The flag of Corsica is white with a Moor's head in the middle. The representation of the Moor's head fits the traditional description of the Moorish slave captured and traded by the Christians, or of the Moors who occupied for a long time Spain, the south of Portugal, parts of the Mediterranean shore off of the coast of France, and several Corsican villages. The strip of cloth on the Moor's head was once a blindfold, an ugly symbol of slavery lifted higher to become a bandana to mark the liberation of the Moors in the late Middle Ages. Corsica is currently governed by France. Corsica was ruled by the Republic of the Genoa from 1284 to 1755. The future emperor of the French, Napoleon Bonaparte, was a native Corsican. Many Corsican surnames are rooted in the Italian peninsula, as Tuscany culture is deeply rooted in Corsican history. Corsica has been occupied continuously since the Mesolithic era. It was engulfed early into the Roman Republic and was considered as one of the most backward regions of the Roman world. Corsica was known for its cheap wine and slaves. After the fall of the Roman Empire, there was a brief migration from Tuscany to Corsica and helped to divide the island culturally. In the 16th century, the island entered into the fight between Spain and France for the supremacy in Italy. Genoese power was reinstated, and they did not allow the Corsican nobility to share in the government of the island and oppress the inhabitants with a heavy tax burden. On the other hand, they introduced the chestnut tree on a large scale, improving the diet of the population, and built a chain of towers along the coast to defend Corsica from the attacks from North Africa. In 1729, the Corsican Revolution for independence from Genoa began. After 26 years of struggle against the Republic of Genoa, the independent Corsican Republic was proclaimed in 1755. The Corsican Republic was unable to eject the Genoese from the major coastal fortress. The Republic of Genoa, exhausted by 40 years of fighting, decided to sell the island to France. The Corsican Republic was crushed by a large French army. This marked the end of the Corsican sovereignty. Despite triggering the Corsican crisis in Britain, whose government gave secret aid, no foreign military support came for the Corsicans. However, nationalist feelings still ran high, despite the conquest. Despite the conquest, Corsica was not incorporated into the French state until 1789. In the late 1780s, France was a major colonial power, its territories powered by an estimated 800,000 slaves. Historical accounts say the system was violent and the death rate was so high among the enslaved that the workers had to be constantly replenished by the African slave trade. When Napoleon became emperor of France, he needed laborers, so he restarted the slave trade between Africa, Europe, and North America. Despite Napoleon being born in Corsica, many Corsicans did not praise his existence. The island was neglected by Napoleon's government. In 1814, near the end of the Napoleonic Wars, Corsica was briefly occupied again by British troops. After the Restoration, the island was further neglected by the French state, despite the presence of a middle class. During the first half of the century, the people of Corsica were still immersed in the Italian culture world. Several political refugees from the Italian peninsula spent years in the island, while some Corsicans took active part in the fights for Italian independence. From the 19th century into the mid-20th century, Corsicans also grew closer to the French nation through the participation in the French Empire. During World War II, in November of 1942, the island was occupied by the Italian and German forces following the Anglo-American landings in North Africa. After the Italian armistice in September of 1943, Italian and Free French forces pushed the Germans out of the island, making Corsica the first French department to be freed. Subsequently, the U.S. military established 17 airfields nicknamed USS Corsica, which served as bases for attacks on targets in German-occupied Italy.